The Winchester Mystery House. The Winchester Mystery House stands as an eerie monument to grief and paranoia. Endless corridors lead to nowhere, staircases vanish into ceilings, and doors open to brick walls. It is a house that defies logic, built by a woman who believed she was haunted by vengeful spirits. But what if she was right? What if the ghosts never left and are still waiting for their next victim? The night was thick with fog when Daniel Carter arrived at the Winchester Mystery House. As a paranormal investigator, he had spent years chasing ghosts in abandoned hospitals, forgotten graveyards, and cursed hotels. But nothing unnerved him quite like the story of Sarah Winchester, the grieving widow who spent her fortune building an endless maze to keep spirits at bay. For Daniel, it wasn't just another investigation, it was personal. His younger sister, Emily, had vanished inside the house a decade ago during a ghost tour. No body was ever found. No explanation. The police called it a disappearance. Daniel called it something else. He had sworn never to return. But last week, he received an email from an anonymous sender. A single sentence chilled his blood. Emily is still in the house. A nightmare unleashed. As Daniel stepped into the grand hallway, the air turned frigid. The wooden floor creaked beneath his boots, and a draft whispered down the corridor. The house was abandoned for the night, but the silence wasn't empty. It was watching. His flashlight flickered. He tapped it, but the light continued to sputter. A cold breath crawled up his spine. He wasn't alone. A faint sob echoed from the upper floors. He turned sharply. The sound was distant but unmistakable. A child crying. Heart pounding, he ascended the staircase, each step groaning under his weight. The sobbing grew louder as he neared the infamous unfinished room, the place where Sarah Winchester supposedly received visions from the dead. The door was slightly ajar. He hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, he pushed it open. The room was empty, but on the wall, scrawled in jagged letters, was a single word: help. The moment he read it, the door slammed shut behind him. His flashlight died, and then, in the suffocating darkness, a whisper rasped against his ear. Daniel, run. 3. The ghost of Emily. Tragedy that makes the audience cry. Daniel's pulse pounded. He fumbled for his flashlight, his breath shallow. Something moved in the shadows, a shape shifting, crawling toward him. Then he heard it, a voice he had prayed to hear for 10 years. Daniel? His blood froze. He turned, his shaking hand raising the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, and there she was. Emily. Her face was pale, her hair tangled, her dress torn as if she had been lost in time. But her eyes, they were hollow, filled with something beyond human suffering. Emily. Daniel rushed forward, tears burning his eyes. I thought you were... Her expression twisted with fear. No, you have to go. They won't let me leave. Before he could react, her body convulsed, as if invisible hands were dragging her backward. Her mouth stretched open in a silent scream, her eyes filled with terror. Then she was gone, vanished into thin air. Daniel fell to his knees, tears streaking his face. He had found his sister, only to lose her again. And this time, he wasn't sure he could save her. IV. The unbelievable revelation, shock and fright again. A cold wind whipped through the room, and the walls trembled as if the house itself was breathing. The air smelled of decay. Then the whispering began. Not one voice. Hundreds. The walls darkened, shifting like liquid, and suddenly, they were no longer alone. Figures emerged from the darkness. Their faces were twisted in agony, their hands reaching out. The spirits Sarah Winchester had tried to escape were here. And at the center of them all, a monstrous figure loomed, its form shifting between human and something far worse. Its eyes were empty sockets, its mouth stretched too wide. It spoke without sound, and yet the words screamed inside Daniel's head. She belongs to us. The entity raised its clawed hand, and Daniel's body convulsed as if an invisible force was crushing him. He gasped for air, his vision darkening. Then, just as he felt himself slipping into unconsciousness, the whispers stopped. A single word echoed through the chamber. Wait. The figure tilted its head as if listening to something unseen. Then, in a voice that sent ice through Daniel's veins, it whispered, "He doesn't know the truth yet." And then, with a deafening screech, everything went black. The mystery continues. Cliffhanger for next episode. Daniel woke up outside the house, sprawled on the cold pavement. His head throbbed, his body ached, The sky was beginning to lighten with the early dawn. He scrambled to his feet, his heart hammering. He turned to the house, expecting to see something.